This day in Philly sports history is proud to be a part of the Clashing Conferences Sports Fan Network, where passionate fans make powerful content. Check out theclashingconferences.com and join the squad today. What's up, everyone? Welcome to This Day in Philly Sports History for July 30th, 2025. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Wednesday edition of the podcast. Happy Humpday to everyone out there. It's going to be another hot, steamy, humid one. I think everything's supposed to break tomorrow, which is good. But we got a busy couple of days here. And I guess first and foremost, let's start with the game. Phillies beat the White Sox last night 6-3. Schwarber with a bomb. Brandon Marsh with a bomb. Luzardo got in a little bit of trouble in the first inning, was able to hold it down, 7 shutout innings. And then Daniel Robert gave up 3 runs in the 9th. No harm, no foul. And I usually don't do this. However, I did have the over in the game, so those 3 runs did give me a push. It did look like the Phillies were going to score 9 runs on their own, but a good bounce-back win for them. They look to take the series this afternoon, sending Taijuan Walker, who did not pitch bad up in New York his last time out. Let's go. You can't lose this game. Cannot lose this game. And then tomorrow they're off, trade deadline, so be refreshing Twitter, all that other good stuff all day. And listen, it's going to be expensive. And there is it's simple supply and demand. There's a short demand, or big supply, huge demand for specifically relievers that the Phillies need. So it's going to cost you what you need to do. However, I've gone on record. We've done a lot of trade deadline stuff over the past week or so. You got to make the trade, Dave. You got to do it. The prospects they're just that. They're prospects. And I don't think anybody should be off the table with the exception of maybe Painter. And that's only if you plan on using him as a contributor down the stretch here. But we go back, and again, Ruben Amaro gets, I think, an unjustifiably bad rep in this town. He didn't do anything to replenish the farm system. I 100% agree with that. However, he had the balls to go for it. He went for it every single year and put those teams from 2009 to 2011 in a position to win another World Series. And I think we often lose sight of that because the team underachieved. He went out and got Hunter Pence when he needed to. Went out, brought Cliff Lee back. Got Roy Oswalt. Went for Roy Halladay. So got Cliff Lee the first time. So he went for it. It just did not work out. Now, could he have done a better job replenishing the farm system? Probably. I think that's obvious. I do know, I've heard him say this before, that he was, I think Ranger Suarez was drafted under him. But you got to go for it, Dave. Like, these prospects, and I mean, really, what did Ruben give up for them? And I think this is more, out of all of the trades that Ruben made, this is more an indictment, I think, on what he did not do to replenish the farm system. It seems as though Dombrowski has the things in place, the people in place, the scouting, the player development in place to not have that happen. I mean, they've been slowly getting there, and it seems like they have a good system. But Ruben, Carlos Carrasco was a solid major league pitcher. Travis d'Arnaud, we talked about him the other day, was an all-star, won a World Series with the Braves. And then J.A. Happ, who was a solid starter. But we held on to Dom Brown too long. Imagine what we could have gotten for Dom Brown. You could have gotten a player as well as help replenish the farm system. Kyle Drabeck, everybody was like, oh, Kyle Drabeck. What did he do? So I caution about being too attached to these prospects because we were attached to Dom Brown forever. And apparently Dom Brown still lives in the area. Apparently he's a nice guy. And I'm not knocking him as a person, but as a player, he had a good 6-week stretch, parlayed it into the All-Star game. But I think we overvalued and held on too long to a lot of these guys. And I feel like we're starting to do the same. If it takes Crawford and Mick Abel and Aiden Miller to get some of these guys in, and now you don't want to do it for rentals, but if you can get a guy back who's going to be under club control and contributing at a major league level, which according to Dave Dombrowski, those guys aren't quite there yet, I think it's worth it, especially if you're able to make a deep playoff run. I just, like I said, I caution about holding on to the prospects too long, especially when it seems you have a solid system, a solid infrastructure in place that's going to allow you to replenish that system. So we'll see what happens. We're about 36 hours away from the trade deadline. Should be a very non-productive day at work as we're refreshing Twitter and going to all the different sites and MLB rumors and whatever. But Dave, do the right thing here. A little side note about Schwarber's home run yesterday. It was his 37th of the year. That is the most home runs by a Philly before the month of August, which to me is kind of surprising. And then it made me realize how hot Ryan Howard got in August and September in 2006. And we're going to get more into that later in the show. But Ryan Howard had 58 home runs and did not have 37 by August. So another thing you got to worry about there, Dave. Glad I'm not in your shoes, Mr. Dombrowski. All right, Eagles update from camp. Full pad practice yesterday in that heat. They practiced their longest practice of training camp so far, almost 2 hours. Apparently it was a good practice specifically for the defense. Jihad Campbell was out there. And everybody, like I mentioned yesterday, I follow a couple different people that are always at camp. Everybody said the same thing. You can't miss Jihad Campbell. He's all over the place. And that's huge if he's going to be ready for the home opener. But it looks like he's been doing pretty well. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. has been continuing to impress, which is good because you're not going to have Nakobe Dean for most of the season, if at all, based on that ACL injury. But it seems like the defense is ahead of the offense right now. And one thing that I'm not necessarily concerned about because it's training camp. And I know a lot of people talk about the stats and this and that, but it's training camp. It's practice. And as AI used to say, we're talking about practice here. But apparently we were told that the offense was going to pretty much be consistent, maybe with a few new wrinkles. It does seem like they're passing it more, and that could be by design because it is practice, and they're trying to get some of those reps in, and then once the season starts, they'll go back to being a run-first team. But it's worth noting, like I said, that the defense is ahead of the offense right now. Jalen Hurts, he's a different breed. I know he says he's a breed of one, but just out there, asked about the heat. He was like, yeah, fatigue makes cowards of us all. So we need to get Jalen here on a Tuesday for our motivation positivity. But Vic Fangio did speak to the media yesterday, said the heat, it's a mental thing. He was like, we're fine. He's such an old school guy, and I absolutely love it. Did speak about Adoree Jackson, said it's time for him to show us who he is or who he isn't. And I kind of like this because he's not messing around. He's saying, listen, you're either going to be a contributor to this team or you're not. And maybe that was his way of motivating Adoree Jackson to play better. It seems like he and Keely Ringo are splitting the time. Keely probably getting a few more reps. Everybody's saying, though, it does not look like they're there yet. So again, I don't know if that means Howie is going to be on the phone. I'm sure he is working the waiver wire, whatever he has to do. I would appreciate it, though, if he maybe got on the phone and gave Dave Dombrowski some tips. But good day for the Eagles camp. Again, quiet, which is a good thing for the Eagles. All right, yesterday, The trivia question I asked you: who else did the Phillies acquire in the Cliff Lee trade with Cleveland back in 2009? And that would be Mr. Ben Francisco, who did contribute to the team. So thank you to everybody who came out and threw their guesses out for there. Hit the Discord channel up, which is the first link in the description, as well as any of the social media. And speaking of the social media, housekeeping time. Be sure to follow me on social media, Jimbo_Mont on Twitter and TikTok. On Instagram, at Philly Jimbo. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, which is at Jimbo_Mont. Continue to spread the word. Leave the comments. Lots of people have been commenting, leaving reviews, and all that other good stuff. I appreciate it. Thank you for listening. If you're a new listener, welcome. It's good to have you. Don't forget, if you want to see highlights, clips, still trying to work through what that looks like with the new platform, but that is on all my social media, including Facebook and LinkedIn, so go check me out there. We start the Final Four today of our greatest individual season in Philly sports history. Final Four matchup today, tomorrow, and the championship on Friday. And then in August, we do our top 5 of the first 25 years of the century. Going to have some fun with that leading up to Eagle season. And then speaking of Eagle season, don't forget details. We're working them out as we speak for the pregame show I'm going to be doing with my brother every week before every Eagles game. I'm going to break down the game the week before, give you our picks. The 3 keys are back. KeyBank or any car dealership in the area open for sponsors. So hit me up if you want to do that. And it could be a little mom and pop car dealership if you want as well. Give you some bets, fantasy picks, things like that. Should be a lot of fun. Working on trying to get some opposing fans and experts on as well. So stay tuned for that. Details will be forthcoming as they become available. All right, it is Wednesday. And on Wednesdays, we do What If Wednesday, brought to you by Lotwin. Go to lotwin.com, get your 3D custom hype chain. Use the promo code TCCPOD to take 10% off your order. It's fantasy football time. These things are great for fantasy football winners and losers alike. So go to lotwin.com and get your 3D custom hype chain. Don't forget the promo code TCCPOD to take 10% off of your order. And of course, we're 36 hours from the trade deadline. Depending on when you're listening to this, it could be less. But we're going to stick with a trade deadline theme. And on this day, July 30th in 2006, one of the most underrated trades I feel in Phillies history occurred. Pat Gillick traded Bobby Abreu and Corey Lytle to the Yankees for prospects who eventually never really panned out, but it sort of signified a changing of the guard. It was the unofficial end of the Ed Wade era. Abreu was one of the last kind of guys left that Ed Wade had brought in. Obviously, the core was drafted by Ed Wade. Shout out to Ed Wade, who is going to be inducted in the Phillies Wall of Fame. I don't think he gets enough credit for his hand in that 2008 World Series championship. So he and Jimmy Rollins are getting inducted on Friday night. I'm going down, looking forward to it to celebrate J-Roll and Ed Wade. But this was sort of Pat Gillick putting his stamp on the team. And when he made this trade, basically wrote off the rest of 2006, came out in the media and said, don't expect this team to be any good in 2007. They should be ready to compete in 2008. Why would he say that? Well, at the time, the Phillies were 47-54, 14 games back in the division in 4th place. They were 8 games back in the wild card. But it lit a fire under them. I mentioned it being the changing of the guard. You had Abreu, who was the all-star, very much maligned. I don't know if there's anybody who is more divisive and just people are split on. Polarizing, I guess would be a good word. You either love Abreu or you hate him. So getting him out of there gave guys like Ryan Howard, Jimmy Rollins, Chase Utley, those guys a chance to step up and really be the core that they would as they went. We found out later that they would go on to win the World Series in 08 and just be one of the more dominant teams in Major League Baseball. So after this trade, Phillies went 38-23 down the stretch, finished 3 games back of the wild card. I remember they just got absolutely hot, but it did set the tone then for 2007. Despite what Pat Gillick said, Jimmy Rollins came out in spring training and said, we're the team to beat. Now back to Abreu, who was traded that day. He was good offensively, but I do think that defensively he struggled. I know there's a lot of people who say, oh, he got a Lifetime Achievement Award when he won the Gold Glove. However, like I said, the team did rally together after getting rid of Abreu. It also, underrated, gave Shane Victorino some regular playing time, who Shane became one of the key cogs in those 07 to 2011 teams. So for What If Wednesday, what if the Phillies didn't trade Bobby Abreu? What if they held on to him? He was an all-star caliber player, had a couple good seasons offensively left in him. He still had decent numbers between 2007 and 2009. Obviously, defensively, he was a liability, and at the time, there was not a DH in the National League. How much of an impact would that have had on that 2007, 2008, 2009 Phillies team? Likely a big impact. That team, like I said, gelled after Bobby Abreu came together. Some of it was out of necessity. Some of it may have been because there was no pressure, because the general manager said, don't expect them to compete the following year. We're writing off this season. Maybe it was sort of like the major league effect where they're like, screw you, we're going to go out and show you what we can do. Who knows? But I think it was sort of the perfect storm of all of that that allowed the team to rally together. I mean, if Bobby stayed, though, offensively, your top 5 in the order would have been Rollins, Abreu, Utley, or it would have been Rollins, Abreu, Utley, Howard, and Pat Burrell. I mean, that's a pretty good top 5. Shane Victorino would have went down in the lineup, but would he have even gotten the playing time, and would they have noticed him? Because Aaron Rone was still on this team playing center. What's it mean for Jason Worth? Did they go out and sign him, who was another underrated move that Pat Gillick got? Would we have had a Raul Ibanez in 2009? But most importantly, do they win it in 2008 and 2000, or win the division in 2007, win the World Series in 2008? I'm not so sure, because with Abreu on the team, does Ryan Howard go on the tear he did at the end of 2006? Does Jimmy Rollins come out and proclaim the team as the team to beat in 2007? I mean, Utley was really coming into his own in 2006 too. You still have the core, but does having Bobby Abreu kind of stunt their growth a little bit? I think it's a possibility, and maybe Pat Gillick was way more of a genius than what we thought he was, because whatever he did by trading Bobby Abreu lit a fire under this team. So let me know your thoughts on What If Wednesday. How would the 2007 to 2011 run of the Phillies, how would that have played out with Bobby Abreu on this team? I think it would have stunned it. And I'm actually a Bobby supporter. I think he's a borderline Hall of Fame player. I know a lot of people say, oh, it's hollow number, but the numbers are the numbers. I mean, you can't argue with that. But I do think if he was on this team, it would have stunted the growth of that core. So let me know your thoughts on that. But Pat Gillick making the ballsy move of writing off 2006, writing off 2007, trading Bobby Abreu, and the team responded by going on a tear and then ended up winning the division in 2007. Dave, your move, brother. Your move. All right. So today's trivia question, I stole this one from the Phillies. So if you watched the Phillies game on Monday night, you know this question. But Phillies are playing the White Sox this year. What 3 players have hit 75 or more home runs for both the Phillies and the White Sox? I got 2 of these right away. Didn't know about the third one. Didn't realize, I guess, he played for the White Sox. But thank you to the Phillies staff for this question. Totally, I'm not going to say steal. I'm borrowing. So if you did watch that game on Monday night, then you know the answer to this question. But what 3 players have 75 or more home runs in their career with both the White Sox and the Phillies? Hit me up on Discord. Back to the Future Voice and Text line 267 495-8531. Get that. Anything else Phillies sports related off of your chest. But what 3 players have 75 or more home runs with both the White Sox and the Phillies? Packing up the whole crew for a week down the shore? Don't waste your first day dragging bags and beach chairs. Let Beach Caddy do the work. With bellhop service for move-ins and move-outs, plus beach cart rentals in Ocean City, Avalon, Sea Isle, Stone Harbor, and Wildwood, they've got your back from driveway to dune. Stress less, relax more. Book now at beachcaddy.app. Use the promo code Jimbo for 10% off your bellhop or cart rental services. Beach Caddy, because vacation should start when you get there. Best beach carts on the Jersey Shore. Book now at beachcaddy.app. Use the promo code Jimbo for 10% off your order and let Beach Caddy take the stress out of your vacation. All right, don't forget, for the rest of that summer, that Beach Caddy promo is now 15%. So use the promo code Jimbo to take 15% off of your order. All right, it's going back to July 30th. We told you about the Bobby Abreu trade, but let's go back to 1995. And a big day for me as a kid, and seeing my childhood get recognized as 2 of the all-time greats. 2 longtime Philly fan favorites were inducted into the Hall of Fame on this day. Richie Ashburn and Mike Schmidt went into the Hall of Fame. Schmidt was a first ballot greatest third baseman in the history of the game, bar none. I don't care what anybody says. You can have Brooks Robinson. You can have George Brett. Give me Mike Schmidt all day if I'm starting an all-time team. But Ashburn took a little bit longer route to get there, was an all-star, led the league in hitting a few times, played on the 1950 Whiz Kids team, was inducted by the Veteran Committee. Both of the Ashburn and Schmidt have their numbers retired at Citizens Bank Park. Ashburn, as we all know, fan favorite, longtime color analyst for the Phillies. He and Harry Kalas, who was inducted as well a few years later. Just like I said, the soundtrack of my childhood. But Mike Schmidt was my guy. Still have the autograph poster right here to my left. But just it was a good day for my childhood as Mike Schmidt and Richie Ashburn were inducted into the Hall of Fame. And yes, kids, that statue out in center field, the Richie Ashburn statue in Ashburn Alley, he was a real player. He was a damn good one, even a better person, great color analyst. And little side note, I think I've mentioned this on this podcast before, maybe not, but I was able to do a tour of Citizens Bank Park a few years ago through work. And that statue is in direct sight line. So when you see Kruk and T-Mac, they have a direct view of that, and that was done purposely because Harry Kalas wanted to be able to watch games with his longtime pal, Richie Ashburn. So there's your little tidbit of the day. All right, and then let's go back to 2006. So on this day, we talked about the Phillies trading Bobby Abreu. How did it work out for them on the field? Well, their first 2 games without Bobby Abreu, it was a doubleheader versus the Marlins. The Phillies win game 1, 11-5. Mike Lieberthal hit a homer. Chase Utley went 2 for 5 with a triple and a double. And then they won game 2. So Rollins, Utley, Howard, Burrell all homered. But in the process of that home run in game 2, Chase Utley hit safely in his 31st consecutive game. It tied the Phillies' second longest hitting streak in team history with Ed Delhonte. And Jimmy Rollins has the longest, which I believe he had the year before. But Chase Utley extended his hitting streak to 31 games on this day in 2006 as the Phillies win their first 2 games without Bobby Abreu. And we know it was sort of like a rocket that they took off. And later in August, we'll get to all of a sudden they were back in the playoff race, and they did make a move in August, which paid dividends 2 years later. So stay tuned for that later in August. All right. And finally today, our greatest individual season in Philly sports history tournament rolls on. The winner of the Eagles Regional was Saquon Barkley with 56% of the votes. I get it. I 100% get it, because if you take the whole totality of his impact on the team, the fact they won the Super Bowl, 2,000 yards, all of that, I get it. I still think Reggie White's season in 1987 was more dominant. But of course, I'm biased because I grew up a huge Reggie White fan. But Saquon Barkley moves on to represent the Eagles in the Final Four. So the matchups for the Final Four, we have the Phillies-Flyers matchup today. Tomorrow will be the Eagles-Sixers, and man, what a matchup this is going to be. But we got Steve Carlton versus Eric Lindros today, and then Saquon Barkley versus Wilt Chamberlain tomorrow. So today, the number 2 seed and Phillies champion, Steve Carlton, the greatest pitching season in Phillies history, 27-10, a 1.97 ERA, 346 in the third innings, 310 strikeouts, and 30 complete games. Let's think about that. 30 complete games. Most of them were out of necessity because the team was so bad. Did make the All-Star, won the Cy Young, had a .993 whip if you're into advanced stats like that, which I don't even know how advanced whip is anymore. Back when I was, it was just wins, losses, ERA, and strikeouts, but I digress. But Steve Carlton won 27 games on a team that only won 59. So just remarkable. He's representing the Phillies. And then you got the number 4 seed, Eric Lindros from 1994-95. He was an All-Star, Hart Trophy winner. I'm sorry, he wasn't an All-Star because there was no All-Star game that year due to the lockout. It was all NHL, Hart Trophy, Pearson Trophy winner, scored 70 points in 46 games. Let that sink in. 29 goals, 41 assists, added 17 power play goals, 4 game winners, added another 15 points in the playoffs, including 11 assists, as the Flyers won the Atlantic Division, had the number 2 seed, made it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals before falling to the Devils 4-2. So now it's your turn. Whose season was better? Steve Carlton of the Phillies in 1972, Eric Lindros of the Flyers in 94-95. Get your votes in any way you can. Hit me up on the Discord. Back to the Future voice and text line, 267-495-8531. All of it's fair game, but get that vote in as we have our first Final Four matchup. Steve Carlton from 1972, Eric Lindros from 94-95. Whose season was better? Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, leave a review. All of those things play into the algorithm. Check out the clips on social media. Whatever you can, let's start growing this thing. And we have seen some substantial growth over the past week or two. So thank you for that. I am nothing without my loyal listeners. And then don't forget to go to Philly Goat. They have you covered for all your Philly sports apparel needs. It's been hot. They have the Fan Sickle and the Bryce Pop t-shirts, which are outstanding. I'm wearing my election one with the Philly Fanatic on it today. But go to Philly Goat, use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. But more importantly, get your vote in for the greatest individual season. Steve Carlton, 72, Lindros, 94-95. On this day in 2006, Bobby Abreu was traded from the Phillies, who then went on a tear, winning the first 2 games post Bobby Abreu against the Marlins, a doubleheader. Chase Utley extended his hitting streak to the second best, tying the second best in team history at 31. He would go on to extend it even further. We'll have more on that in August. And then 1995, Richie Ashburn and Mike Schmidt, not Harry Kalas, Mike Schmidt were inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. A big day for childhood Jim there. And then, what if Wednesday? What would have happened if the Phillies did keep Bobby Abreu? I think it would have played out completely different. I think getting rid of Abreu really kind of ignited that team. But let me know your thoughts on that. Tomorrow we'll have training camp updates. We'll have updates on the Phillies White Sox, as well as any trade rumors or possible potential trades that Dave Dombrowski makes. Listen, Dave, Pat Gillick was aggressive. Ruben Amaro was uber aggressive. I'm asking you to go back to that time and channel your inner Pat Gillick, your inner Ruben Amaro Jr., and let's make some things happen, and let's go on a magical run as we go into the fall. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for July 30th, 2025. My name's Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Wednesday, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.